This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there and welcome to Global Business Africa. We'll be giving you insight into Africa's business and financial markets. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, coming to you from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's start with a look at the markets. Now, as rising coronavirus cases dent sentiment across markets today, a slide in Chinese shares pushed MSCI's index of emerging market stocks further into the red for the first time in 5 days. We saw MSCI's EM index slipping 0.4% on the day, and that's as fears resurface over a surge in cases in some parts of Asia and Africa that fueled worries that measures to contain the spread could undermine a global economic recovery. Meanwhile, South Africa's JSE firmer today, climbing over 1%. Financials led that rally, climbing over 2%, with industrials and resources indices not far behind. Also topping the gainers chart today were retail stocks such as Massmart, Mr. Price, and of course True Worths. Now, also coming up on today's show, the European Union fails to recognize the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. The combined GDP of G20 countries returns to pre-pandemic levels. And we look at how a celebrity chef in South Africa is beating the repeated lockdowns and growing his business. And tonight, we start off the show on COVID-19 matters. Now, the African Union is urging the European Commission to consider increasing mandatory access to vaccines, which have been deemed suitable for global rollout through the COVAX facility. This follows concerns that the European Union's Green Pass does not recognize Covishield, which is the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. Now, so far, the Green Pass only applies to vaccines that have received EU-wide marketing authorization. The Africa CDC and the African Union Commission add that persons who receive a Covishield, despite being able to demonstrate proof of vaccination, continue to be subject to public health restrictions. Well, the name Covishield is derived from AstraZeneca's shot, which is called Vaxzevria. The European Medicines Agency says that Serum Institute of India didn't apply to have the vaccine approved. And let's get the details on this. We're joined by Lucy Hoff. She's in Brussels, Belgium. Great to have you on the show with us today, Lucy. Now, is it exactly clear why the vaccine produced under the license from the Serum Institute of India is excluded from that list? Can this be easily resolved going forward?
Well, we know that there are negotiations going on at the moment to get this matter resolved quickly. This is a vaccine, Covishield, that was given emergency authorization by the WHO back in February, but the EU's health regulator, the European Medicines Agency, is saying that Covishield, produced by the Serum Institute in India, has not yet applied for authorization within the EU, and therefore that decision has not yet been taken, despite the fact that the vaccine follows almost exactly the same pattern as the Vaxzevria vaccine, also produced by Oxford AstraZeneca. But the CEO of the Serum Institute has tweeted saying that he has taken this matter up with at the highest level, that discussions are ongoing, and saying that this has been taken up with both regulators and diplomatic authorities at the highest level, with a hope that it can be resolved quickly.
Now, of course, this means the Africans who have gotten that Covishield vaccine cannot enter the UK just yet. The AU and Africa CDC, they're urging the EU to reconsider this decision and also increase the mandatory access to vaccines which are deemed suitable for global rollouts through the COVAX facility. What are the chances this could happen?
Well, I think the message, that statement that we had from the CDU is interesting, isn't it? Because the COVAX facility has received millions of euros in European Commission funding. It has been supported by the European Union, and yet there is a vaccine that has been rolled out prolifically in India and in the African Union that is currently not valid or authorized here in the EU, and that could therefore lead to big restrictions for people who've received those vaccines in low and middle income countries in terms of travelling into Europe. So the message there has been clear in that statement that this is something that needs to be resolved quickly, that those vaccines that have been authorised for use here are currently 4 vaccines, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna and Oxford AstraZeneca, that those are rolled out in countries outside of the European Union in order that travel can resume. Under the current restrictions or guidelines given out under the COVID certificate that is designed to enable international travel, it's currently up to individual member states to decide if they want to allow access to vaccines that are currently not authorised. So it could be at the discretion of some countries to allow the Covishield vaccine. In the meantime, we know, as I say, that the discussions are taking place at a high level. So it could be that this matter is resolved quickly, that Covishield is authorised. In the meantime, it could be that we see individual member states starting to allow that vaccine on their own terms.
Well, we're certainly watching it closely. Many thanks, Lucy, for that update. That's Lucy Hoff joining us there in Brussels. Well, let's head back to the continent. South Africa has tightened lockdown restrictions as new COVID-19 cases continue rising. But the move has dampened rebounding business confidence at a time when the country is still trying to recover to pre-pandemic levels. Here's CGTN's Angelo Coppola with more on this.
South African authorities have confirmed that the Delta variant is responsible for many of the new infections in KwaZulu-Natal and the third wave of infections in Gauteng province.
These viruses need to continue mutating to try to evade the immune responses that's been targeted against the virus so that it can continue surviving and continue propagating essentially. So that is when you have these mutations which are basically making the virus relatively resistant to the antibody that is targeting specific proteins that are on the surface, which otherwise would be able to get rid of the virus.
As the variant spread, authorities have opened hundreds of vaccination sites. 58 of those are targeting the mining sector and currently going through the registration process.
We have now 5 sites that are vaccinating. The first site was on the 24th of May in the Platinum Belt. And I think we are at least satisfied that we have got something in Platinum, in the Northwest Province, which has the largest number of mine workers. We also have 2 sites in the coal sector, and we also have 2 other sites in the gold sector.
South Africa, like many other African countries, has suffered from a shortage of vaccines.
The vaccine shortage has not had as big an impact on us as the fact that our sites had not yet been approved. So we hope that, with more sites being approved, the issue of vaccine shortage will not be an issue, and it means we can really ramp up on the side of there's more sites, but there's also more vaccines available.
On a broader level, it's been suggested that experts will think differently about vaccines in future.
It's unlikely that we're going to be able to prevent resurgences from taking place or to stop the virus from circulating. In fact, elimination of this virus is no longer an option in the immediate future, and certainly not during the course of our lifetimes.
As the country moves into that next level of lockdown, there's some questions being asked about whether all the measures and restrictions that have been put in place are actually going to make a difference. The bottom line is we need vaccines, we need vaccinations, and they need to be done quickly. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, following those renewed restrictions, South Africa's urban streets were deserted and liquor stores remained shut on Tuesday. Africa's most advanced economy recorded about 18,000 new infections on Saturday, which is just 3,000 shy of its second wave peak, which was last seen in January. Now, government data shows that 1 in every 4 people being tested are showing a positive result. The new restrictions come at a time when the government has already withdrawn grants and relief schemes for people and businesses affected by the virus. Many are complaining that a tightening of restrictions could lead to irreversible damage to an already reeling economy.
Yes, I'm very much scared of COVID. It is alive. A lot of people say it's not alive, but I've lost a lot of relatives, friends of mine, which I've lost.
I can't tell you, this thing is very dangerous. I mean, even in the location, we're not safe. Man. We're not safe anywhere we go. We're not safe, really.
There's nothing we can do now, but we need to start afresh. But we start afresh with who? Because people are dying. Because we lost so many customers even here. There are no people coming in, and they are dying. Every day I hear somebody's gone.
And heading to Tanzania now, the country says it has about 100 COVID-19 hospital patients in its third wave. That's according to the first coronavirus data the country has released in over a year. Well, President Samia Suluhu Hassan says 70 patients are in critical condition and are currently on ventilators. Here's CGTN's Daniel Kijo reporting.
After more than a year, Tanzania has released data on COVID-19 patients in the country.
If you look at the data, it's not many patients, but we have to take precautions so the number does not increase. So we decided to align with what the rest of the world is doing and get vaccines.
Tanzania last released COVID-19 data in April 2020. After that, then President John Magufuli's administration denied the virus was present in the country. A committee of experts on COVID-19 set up by Tanzania's new president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, recommended a change in handling the pandemic. It urged that official figures on the spread of the disease in the country be shared and also called for vaccines to be made available. The Tanzanian government says it is processing a $470 million loan from the World Bank to help combat the pandemic. Half of the money will be used to purchase COVID-19 vaccines, while the other half will be used to bail out sectors that have been severely hit by the pandemic. The president has also confirmed that Tanzania has already registered for the COVAX facility package. The vaccines will be voluntary to give citizens the opportunity to choose what is best for them. No specific dates for the rollout have been given.
Now our experts are working on deciding which vaccine we should import and how. We can have two doors, those who are willing to buy the vaccine commercially and those who will be vaccinated by the government.
President Samia has handled the pandemic differently from her predecessor Magufuli, who died in March. Her decision to publish hospitalization numbers and acquire vaccines sets Tanzania on a path more in line with the rest of the world. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And now look at our corporate headlines today. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has reached an agreement with Dangote Group to purchase a 20% stake in the company's oil refinery under construction in Lagos State. Now, the NNPC adds that it is in talks with banks to buy the stake in the 650,000 barrel per day refinery. Meanwhile, the African Development Bank, in partnership with South Korea, has signed the Korea-Africa Energy Investment Framework. Under the deal signed by the Korean Ministry of Economy and Finance, the Export-Import Bank of Korea, and the African Development Bank, South Korea is set to provide $600 million in co-financing for energy projects. And Visa and Pan-African fintech company Carbon have signed a strategic partnership aimed at offering both digital and physical issuance of Visa cards to its customers. Now, Carbon will deploy an instant issuance process in 3 key markets, including Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. Carbon is expected to launch Visa debit cards in the third quarter of 2021. And finally, a U.S. judge has dismissed federal and state antitrust complaints against Facebook Incorporated that sought to force the social media company to sell Instagram and WhatsApp. Now, the judge added that the federal complaint was legally insufficient. Facebook shares rose more than 4% after the ruling, putting Facebook's market cap at over $1 trillion for the first time. And that's a look at our corporate headlines. Well, we are heading into a short break now, still coming up on the show. South Africa finally initiates the switch from analog to digital broadcasting transmissions. And Uganda launches a Clean Power for All initiative that unites all renewable energy companies.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible and why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Uche Okoronkwo. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Welcome back. Now, South Africa has finally initiated the switch from analog to digital broadcasting transmissions. Back in 2005, the International Telecoms Union declared that countries in Africa and other regions should be encouraged to migrate to a digital television platform. Well, South Africa, on the other hand, has fallen behind and is only catching up this year. More on this story from CGTN's Sumitra Naidu.
South Africa missed the 2015 deadline set by the International Communications Union to complete the transition from analog to digital terrestrial television. This project has been plagued by delays, but it now seems to be moving along.
Since February up until, let's say, the end of May, we've switched off over 76 low power and high power sites. We are busy now with the Northern Cape. We are busy with the Limpopo. And we are also busy with the Northwest as well as Mpumalanga.
Earlier this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced in his State of the Nation address that the move to digital will be completed in all 9 provinces by March 2022.
So essentially, South Africa is, as we all know, way behind in the digital migration. The mobile networks haven't got sufficient spectrum, especially for a country like South Africa, to roll out advanced networks and in fact to roll out data at costs that South Africans can afford.
Mobile companies are desperately awaiting the move as it will free up spectrum.
That spectrum to be allocated to other things, most notably the mobile networks, and allow them to start rolling out 4G and 5G, in very low frequencies where television exists. So it's of paramount importance that South Africa speeds that up and gets the job done across the country in as short a possible time.
But the move to digital in a country like South Africa will leave millions unable to access TV networks. The South African Post Office is now making set-top boxes available to those that qualify.
USASA is ensuring that there's the voucher system that is given to people so that they can get the set-top boxes. Centec is doing the physical, switch off, as in you go to a site, and then the SABC is basically giving the authorization to say, yes, this site now can be switched off because we think we will not lose audiences. Remember, on our side as the broadcaster, we don't want to lose our audiences.
Households receiving social grants or earning less than $225 per month will get set-top boxes at no cost. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, China has invested at least $20 billion on infrastructure projects in Egypt through the HSBC Bank. That's according to the lender's CEO, Todd Wilcox. Infrastructure projects have been a priority for Egypt's government since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took office in June 2014. And as CGTN's Yasser Kim now reports, China is playing a vital role in the development of these projects.
A major rebuilding process began in Egypt back in 2016, less than 2 years after President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi came to office. The development of new cities, roads, upgrading the transportation system, and the rehabilitation of the Suez Canal economic zones were amongst the main projects in the plan. And China has been an integral part in this overhaul, investing more than $20 billion on infrastructure alone in the North African state.
For the productive part, you can consider the Teide area. It's the economic Chinese area in the Suez axis. And actually it has many companies and many industries, including car industries, steel industries, other energy-related industries, and so on. China has some other projects other than Teide, the one in Aswan for the energy production, the electric grid project.
Chinese companies are building a $3 billion business district at the new capital, with its iconic tower set to become the highest in Africa. Beijing is also leading construction works for a number of railway lines, electric trains, and buses for public transport. Chinese officials had always commended Egypt's efforts to develop its solid foundations.
I think the last 3 years, Egypt has excellent conditions. You have very good infrastructure, like you have sufficient electricity. You have the transportation network very good developed, and also all the ports. You have the many ports that can connect the rest of the world.
Meanwhile, local experts emphasize the importance of Chinese experience in the rebuilding process.
These investments will help in building up the infrastructure in many sectors, the energy sector, the industrial sector, the agricultural sector, as well as some transportation risky projects. You can count on this, on offering new technological transfers, on having new ways of doing things, on employing so many people, like we're talking about thousands of employees, like the one in Teide projects at the Suez Canal axis.
And cooperation has not stopped. There are still agreements in the pipeline for new agriculture and water sanitation projects. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Now, tourists are once again heading to Morocco following the easing of coronavirus restrictions under a new marketing campaign that has slashed the cost of travel and accommodation. The tourism industry has seen a slight surge in arrivals, and that's offering some hope of an imminent turnaround. Here's CGTN's Terry Wangari with more on that.
The touchdown of planes across Marrakesh has become more frequent since restrictions on flights were lifted in Morocco. The country was the first in Africa to resume air travel operations, which has resulted in a tourism boom.
From the restart of flights on the 15th of June, we have been receiving approximately 4,000 passengers every day. We are hoping these statistics will go up gradually, as there are other flight companies that will resume their flights to and from Marrakesh airport.
In addition to airfare discounts, cut-price deals are being offered on rail, bus and coach transport, travel agencies and car rentals, as well as a 30% reduction on hotel prices. Morocco is currently on the UK's amber list of travel destinations. Despite this, tourists remain undeterred and hotels in Marrakesh are reporting 100% occupancy.
On a commencé à avoir des réservations, bien sûr.
We started to have reservations. Of course, we applied the King's decision. We have promotions and promotional rates on all categories of rooms, and indeed, we started to have reservations requests that have started to move in a little in this moment. But we are also asking to lift more restrictions because until now, there are certain activities in the field of tourism and hotels that are still closed.
Jusqu'à maintenant, il y a certains.
Despite the optimism, tourism in Morocco is not expected to return to its usual pre-pandemic level until after 2030. According to officials, the sector lost more than $7.2 billion last year.
We are very confident for the future. We are looking for several markets abroad, new markets as well. Of course, we have our traditional markets, which is Europe. But here we are attacking other markets at the level of Latin America, Asia, India, Israel. Why not? So there are a lot of prospects. There are a lot of things that we're working seriously with new ideas, with new tourism in general.
Away from the hustle and bustle of Marrakesh, tourists are trickling back to the desert. Situated 30 kilometers from Marrakesh, the Stone Desert continues to welcome groups from Europe and the US.
Well, here I am again after 2 years of absence due to my studies in France, and I haven't seen my family, and here I am back to see them and to have extra time with them and to be with them all the time to have fun.
Many businesses in the industry are hoping for a successive turnaround. For travelers, the opportunity to dance under the stars and celebrate with a campfire is a worthwhile adventure. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
Moving on now, foreign and development ministers have gathered in the Italian city of Matera. They're focusing on Africa as the meeting is set to adopt the Matera Ministerial Declaration. The declaration affirms the G20's commitment to addressing food emergencies. Now, these include building resilient and sustainable food systems. The Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 257 million of the world's undernourished are located in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic is attributed to have dramatically increased the number of food insecure people on the continent. And on that note, let's head into a quick break, still coming up on the show. The combined GDP of G20 nations returns to pre-pandemic levels. And we look at how Chinese authorities have managed to roll out the world's largest basic medical insurance program.
Taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 14 hours of rain.
No one again began holding guns.
Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Business in Africa is at a crossroads. We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in. Business in Africa is high risk. After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Well, now let's recap other headlines this hour. South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, has been found guilty of contempt of court and has been sentenced to 15 months in prison. He failed to appear at a corruption inquiry in February and has been given 5 days to appear before the police. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has raised concerns about terrorist groups advancing in Africa. Speaking at the opening of the high-level conference of heads of counterterrorism, Guterres stressed that supporting African nations to prevent and counter threats must be a global priority. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the army says that an Islamist militia with links to Islamic State is responsible for 2 blasts in the eastern city of Beni over the weekend. Now, there has been increased security in the area with the subsequent closure of schools, churches and markets. One of the blasts occurred at a Catholic church and the other at a busy intersection. Meanwhile, the United Nations World Food Programme is calling for more funding to mitigate acute food shortages in South Sudan. The WFP is warning that without urgent attention, famine could become a reality for millions of people in the East African nation. And that's a recap of today's top headlines. Now, the combined GDP of G20 nations returned to pre-pandemic levels in the first quarter of this year, but the differences in recovery remain large between nations. Well, a study by the OECD shows G20 economies as a whole grew 0.8% on quarter in Q1 2021. Amongst G20 nations, the economies of China, India and Turkey surpassed their pre-pandemic levels in the final quarter of last year and continue to grow in the first quarter of this year. Meanwhile, Australia, South Korea and Brazil returned to pre-pandemic levels in the first quarter of 2021. For the remaining G20 economies, output remains below pre-pandemic levels. The US, Italy, Indonesia, Canada, South Africa and Mexico recorded positive growth, while Germany, the UK, Japan, Saudi Arabia, France and the EU saw negative growth. And moving on, China's economic recovery is broadening as economic activity continues to normalize. That is according to the latest report released by the World Bank. China's economic growth is expected to come in at 8.5% this year before slowing to 5.4% in 2022. And that's as growth normalizes and a low base effect dissipates. While growth is being driven by improving consumer and business confidence and exports shifting towards private domestic demand, the World Bank also points out that areas that may derail its growth include further outbreaks, bilateral tensions, corporate leverage, and the property market, but still risks overall remain balanced. And Greece is experiencing a slow start to this year's big tourist season as the pandemic continues to impede international travel. But business owners are trying to stay positive and they're very welcoming of those who arrive.
Picturesque seaside villages on the Greek island of Samos are unusually quiet for this time of year. Just weeks after Greece officially opened to international visitors, there's still an air of uncertainty around travel amid the pandemic. In early June, hotels were operating at around 25% capacity on average. But there was optimism this would pick up.
We opened to survive, to pay our rents, to pay the people which are working with us, my staff, but of course I hope it's getting better.
Greece's tourism income fell by more than 75% last year compared to 2019, dropping from 18.2 billion euros to 4.3 billion euros. The government says it hopes to reach half the 2019 visitor level this year. Business owners are putting on a brave face, opening hotels, shops and restaurants, hoping the season will pick up as the summer wears on. Vaccine drives speed up and confidence in travel increases.
So far, bookings for our hotel are still low, but we are confident that come July, they will pick up. We are already looking forward to a really strong August and September, and it seems that our season will be extended till middle of October.
Greece was one of the first European Union countries to declare itself open to tourism this year, allowing visitors in from mid-May with either a negative coronavirus test, proof of vaccination, or proof of recent recovery from COVID-19. Apart from accepting EU-approved vaccine certificates, it also recognizes China's and Russia's vaccines. Greg Lafredi, CGTN.
Now, New York's famous Broadway theaters were shut down by the pandemic in March 2020. That has been the longest shutdown in Broadway's history. But of course, the show must go on. And this past weekend, Bruce Springsteen revived his one-man show, marking the first full-length production to be staged on Broadway in about 15 months. Here's CGTN's Karina Huber with more.
The Boss is back, and so is Broadway. Spectators lined up to see Bruce Springsteen in the first large-scale production on Broadway since the pandemic shut down New York City's theaters more than a year ago.
I'm so excited I came alone. That's how excited I am.
It's history, and people are going to get back to Broadway. People will come back to New York City, and this is my city, and I'm thrilled that Bruce has decided to lead the charge back to Broadway.
The creator of the hit song Born in the USA and many others played to a full house. More than 1,700 people filled the seats. Masks were optional. Vaccinations weren't. Attendees had to present proof of vaccination when entering the theater. Only the 3 FDA-approved vaccines were accepted: Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson.
We're all vaccinated. We're ready to go, so
I'm good.
Bring on Bruce.
But not everyone was there to support Bruce. A large group of anti-vaccination protesters stood outside the theater. Many of them shouted at those in attendance, including New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. A similar thing happened when the Foo Fighters performed at Madison Square Garden recently, which also required proof of vaccination.
Well, they're employing the health passports, right? So someone like myself, my friends over here, we can't go see this show because we haven't gotten the vaccination.
An attendee at the show said requiring proof of vaccination was the responsible thing to do, given social distancing in the theater wasn't possible.
It is a choice, but everyone getting vaccinated is a choice for the betterment of our country at this point, and being able to reopen a city like this.
Springsteen has always had a loyal following, but the opening night performance marking Broadway's return got rave reviews from critics too. For many, he provided a ray of light to an industry that has been in the dark for far too long.
Bruce may be the first to bring Broadway back, but other productions are getting ready to raise their curtains too. A handful of them will debut in August, with the real grand reopening happening in September. Sadly, Disney's Frozen, Beetlejuice, and Mean Girls are among the productions not returning. Karina Huber, CGTN, New York.
Now, Chinese health authorities say over 1.3 billion people in the country have enrolled in basic medical insurance programs, and theirs is the largest in the world. Well, CGTN's San Yuan is in northeastern China's Panjin, where authorities say no one is being left behind.
In China, enrolling in a public health insurance program can help citizens avoid runaway costs for medical treatment. Doing it is nothing out of the ordinary for millions of urban Chinese workers, as both they and their employers make monthly Social Security contributions. But public health insurance is less known to many people in rural regions where joining a program is voluntary. 72-year-old Li Xiulian didn't know about the system until she was diagnosed with cancer more than a decade ago.
The doctor asked me whether I have healthcare insurance. I said no, I haven't.
The woman lives with her husband in a village in northeast China's Panjin. They have 3 children, but Li says she doesn't want to be a burden, so the couple paid for the surgery with their own money.
I don't want to drag them down. They all have mortgages to pay and kids in colleges.
The bills kept coming as Li continued receiving regular treatment and checkups, eating into their modest savings. After consulting with local health authorities, staff there helped her enroll in a program costing 350 yuan annually, or about $54. Li says she still needs to buy anti-cancer and other drugs each month, costing her quite a bit of money every year. However, with the help of the insurance, Li's bill has been cut in half, making her life easier and rekindling a new hope for health.
With the medical insurance, the government reimburses a majority of the cost. I only have to pay around 40%, so it's more affordable. The government has helped to alleviate people's burdens and worries about seeing the doctor.
In 2020, Panjin started a new health insurance program to cover both urban and rural residents under the same plan. 600,000 rural residents, about 40% of its entire population, can benefit from the reform, especially in the treatment of serious diseases.
In addition, we came up with more medical assistance policies, which are perhaps the most favorable in the province. The provincial reimbursement ratio is set at 70%, but we've managed to raise the bar to 80, even 90%, depending on the diseases. This has prevented the cost of major illnesses pushing families into poverty.
So far, the new program covers 500 medical facilities in Panjin. For rural residents, it's also double the number of drugs eligible for reimbursement. Sun Tianyuan, CGTN, Panjin, Liaoning Province.
Let's shift focus now and take a look at commodity markets today. Oil prices dropping for a second day on growing concerns that mobility restrictions imposed after the latest outbreaks of the Delta variant of COVID-19 would slow demand for fuel. But of course, analysts are saying not much is shaking the market right now. Oil supply is being effectively managed. Therefore, dips are probably viewed by investors as attractive buying opportunities. Meanwhile, gold edging lower today to hover near a one-week low hit in the previous session. They were weighed down by a firm dollar and concerns that the U.S. Fed will tighten its monetary policy sooner than expected. On that note, let's take a short break, but still to come. A celebrity chef in South Africa is adding more outlets despite the ravages of the pandemic.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The greatest journeys. The greatest sights. The greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Now, it has been a tough year for South Africa's restaurant industry. They're having to endure changing lockdown restrictions as COVID-19 numbers continually rise and fall. While celebrity chef Jan Hendrik has, however, managed to grow his business, he's managed to widen his business at home while maintaining a Michelin star rating abroad. Here's CGTN's Julie Shire with his story.
I met up with South African celebrity chef Jan Hendrik van der Westhuizen at his classy Cape Town restaurant. He greeted me with a delicious meal inspired by the flavors from his grandmother's kitchen.
The dish I prepared today is the pumpkin, which is slow roasted on fire. We cook with a lot of fire in South Africa, and that is something that we take everywhere with us. Then we finished it with a boerewors. Boerewors is a type of sausage. Very spicy, not on the hot side, but it's got beautiful coriander, black pepper. We made a sauce with that, and then on top of it, just a beautiful salad.
Jan Hendrik is beaming with pride. It's the kind of cuisine that allowed his restaurant in France to retain its Michelin single-star rating.
When people walk into one of our establishments, they must feel, I've never been to this place, and I love the mix of modern European with old African, and yeah, it's a journey at a table. We've taken South African food and introduced it back to Europe, and we got this award for it. The Michelin is a fantastic rating system, and it's world renowned for excellence.
At home, van der Westhuizen has been hard at work on his latest culinary venture, a rustic farmhouse restaurant in the Kalahari Desert. It serves up a fusion of tastes influenced mainly by local cuisine.
Most of South African food has an influence from another country. So we have the Dutch, the Flam, the German, the Indian, all the Asian coming down the spice route. And for us, it's just beautiful to capture all of that together and put it on a plate.
Many restaurants have been struggling to survive under strict lockdown regulations, but for Jan Hendrik, business is flourishing as he expands across South Africa. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
And still in South Africa, Cape Town's Kelp forest has been named as one of the new 7 wonders of the world by Bloomberg. Also known as the Great African Sea Forest, it gained international recognition through My Octopus Teacher, which is a documentary based on a man's relationship with a sea mollusk. Here's CGTN's Julie Shire with more.
The Great African Sea Forest is a wonderland beneath the waves off the Cape Coast of South Africa. It features as the backdrop in the award-winning documentary My Octopus Teacher, done in conjunction with the Sea Change Project. The Kelp Forest has made Bloomberg's list of the world's new 7 natural and archaeological wonders.
The kelp forest ecosystem has a massive role in climate change, and in many parts of the world kelp forests have declined dramatically or disappeared altogether, and it's not a simple matter of just reversing. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I think with the sort of attraction from the My Octopus Teacher film and then having an added name of being a 7 natural wonder of the world, people might come and explore it.
Kelp is a microalgae which thrives in colder waters. It provides a rich ecosystem for millions of mystical creatures and an undersea marvel for curious humans.
The kelp forest has always been a very special place for me. I have dived all around the world, and it always surprises people when I say that the kelp forest is my most favorite place in the world to dive. It is like the forests of the land. The forest of the sea is a home to so much life. It is a place where biodiversity thrives. It takes care of the carbon that we so recklessly create.
This natural wonder has thrived compared to many others globally, which are under threat from rising sea temperatures caused by climate change.
The next generation is our future, and if we don't protect this environment and create that connection and that love, there will be nothing there for them. Whatever we can do now to inspire future generations is critical. The way we can do it at Sea Change, being predominantly media, filmmakers, storytellers, environmental journalists, and we do have a scientist in our team, is we continue to tell stories that are informed by science.
If it wasn't for the ocean, our planet wouldn't be a place where humans can live. All life on Earth is sustained by the ocean. So our actual existence and survival depends on the sea. But I think the more we talk about it and the more we shine the spotlight on this, like this nomination has done, the greater chance of success we have.
The Great African Sea Forest spans 8,000 kilometers and is estimated to be twice the size of the Grand Canyon in the US. It adds to Cape Town's allure as an international travel destination. Judy Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
And inspired by plastic waste innovations across the world, 2 young fashion designers in Ghana are upcycling discarded plastics and other waste into fashionable outfits. Now, Elisha Bamfo and his brother Calvin want to contribute to the growing trend of sustainable fashion to protect the environment. Here's CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai with this story from Accra.
Where others see rubbish, Elisha Bamfo sees raw materials. He collects plastics from markets in Accra and sews them into clothes.
First, it was just to explore our creativity and innovation, but as I read more about the subject, I realized that it was more of like an urgent project than, it was not just about the creativity, but it was about sustaining the environment.
These plastics come from second-hand clothes imported into Ghana. They are mostly discarded in markets after use. Elisha and his brother Calvin started upcycling plastic waste 2 years ago to tackle pollution.
When you are doing it, it's a bit, you have to be careful before you tear it, because if you tear it, it's like you can't actually mend it.
They also use other waste materials like broken glasses.
It takes about 2 hours for the Bamfo brothers to make a jacket like this using plastics. It feels very warm inside and can be best used during the cold season.
And this innovation is grabbing a lot of attention.
It's different. I know if it was raining, I would be well protected in this.
Out of the 1 million tons of plastic waste Ghana generates annually, only 2 to 5% is recycled. Most ends up at landfills and along the country's beaches. Campaigners say recycling plastics is not the entire solution.
It serves as an awareness-raising mechanism. To its long effects, whether it is a solution, it cannot be a solution because these products, when washed, are going to be releasing microplastics into the environment, which have long-term effects in polluting in other ways. Of course, that's what recycling also does. It ends up still polluting. The real solution is for us to use less stuff, for me and you to change our lifestyles.
Unlike Rwanda and Tanzania that have banned some plastic products, Ghana has yet to take that step. Elisha Bamfo believes more needs to be done.
If all creatives get on board and everybody is being creative within, it will get to a point where rubbish will be scarce because people will no more discard it.
As Elisha and Calvin get more creative with plastics, they hope not only to create a craze for their upcycled clothes in Ghana, but also to one day showcase their designs at a global fashion show. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, before we leave you today, here's a quick look at Africa's currencies. South Africa's rand falling 0.3% on the day. It is heading or hovering towards early May lows. That's after the country tightened curbs over the weekend amid slow vaccination rollouts. Now, traders say the new restrictions could be a more extended delay to policy normalization alongside a marginally weaker currency. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. From me, Uche Okoronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.